My name is Michael Nesfasil. Today I'm interviewing James Allen Grissom on the 6th of June 2022 at his home in Burleson, Texas. This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. So, James, tell us your first, middle, and last name, please.
James Allen Grissom.
And your date of birth?
March 6, 1940.
And who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My dad's name was Romy Grissom, and he was a pressman for a gospel music printing company.
Okay.
My mom's name is Mary Corrine, and she wanted to stay home until I at least got into elementary school. So she was a stay-home mom, and then she went to work for the school district in the kitchen, prepared meals for the kids, so that when school was out, she could go home with me. So she was a wonderful, wonderful lady.
Yes. Do you have any siblings? Your names and brothers, sisters, and did they ever serve in the military?
I have one daughter. Her name is Amy K. Grissom. She never did serve in the military, and she has one son. His name is Alex.
Okay. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
No, I'm an only child.
Okay. Did your family have any feelings in particular about you joining the service?
My decision was mostly my own, and they did not object, as some parents did.
Okay. Primary and secondary schools. You graduated high school?
I graduated high school, went to North Texas State University for one semester, and then I went to University of Texas at Arlington for one semester.
Okay, what high school did you graduate from?
I graduated from Sunset High School. Go Bisons.
Okay, and that's in
Dallas.
Oh, it's
Texas.
in Dallas. Okay, and what year was that?
That was 1958.
Okay. Did you hold any jobs before you entered the service?
Oh, I held several jobs. First job out of high school was at a steel plating plant, and we did plating of metals to keep it from rusting, and we also did, I forget what they call that now, but it's where you color the copper roofs, and then we did copper for bell towers in churches. And I was a junior in high school at that time, and they found out that I had a commercial driver's license, so they got me out of working with all the acids and everything that it took, and put me in the truck driving and delivering. And then my next job was with Frito-Lay, making Fritos and potato chips, and that was a summertime job. And then I went to work for Brooke May's Music Company in Dallas and worked there for a year. And then I moved to Monroe, Louisiana, and went to work for a music store there. And then I went into the Army.
Okay. All right, so at this time I'm going to basically turn it over to you if you want to start talking about, like, when you went into the military, were you drafted, were you enlisted, why did you join, just some reminiscing about, what happened when and where and why.
Okay, and let me back up. In 1960, I got married, and I became very overweight and out of shape, and it ended up in a divorce, and I was classified 4F, and I lost a lot of weight, and then it came back around for another physical, and I was reclassified. And during the meantime, a real dear friend of mine that I had worked with in Dallas at the music store, purchased a music store in Louisiana and said, "Hey, I want you to come to work for me." I said, "Okay, fine." I said, "We may have a problem with the draft." And at that time, I was 26 years old. And he says, "Well, there's a gentleman here that's an officer in the reserve," and he says, "I'll get with him." And turns out there was a vacancy in the reserve unit, was there in Monroe in 95th Division. So I went and enlisted, passed the physical, was accepted, and he wasn't quite ready for me to come to work for him because he was still getting things straightened out from the purchase of the music company. So we had basic training coming up, so I went ahead and enlisted and went to basic training. And when I came back, everything was go for hiring me. And there's some amusing stories about that situation. Before the day I was leaving for boot camp, I went to the local barbershop, which the guys there didn't know me because I had just moved there. And I said, give me one of those military cuts. And the guy said, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. He said, your wife will be down here and beat me up. I said, no, I'm not married. He said, okay. He said, but I'm doing this with reservations. So he just really cut it short, just like they do in the military. Started gathering his stuff up, and I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going home. I'm not going to be here when your wife comes back. So I caught the bus, went to Fort Polk, checked in, and the next day we got up, went to the barber shop. The barber grabbed his shears, gave me one of those shortcuts, and he said, you need that like you did a hole in the heck. That'll be 75 cents, please. So it went on from there, and most of my full-time military, active military, was my 8 weeks of basic training, and then the AIT training, which once I got out of basic training, I was scheduled for a cook school. I was a cook, and it was a real good experience. And I'll back up, one of the funny things in basic training, the first day we were there, the drill sergeant stood up in front of everyone and said, okay, from this day forward, I'm going to be your mama, I'm going to be your papa, I'll be your brother, and I'll be your sister. You're going to you're going to experience some things that are not going to be real pleasant to you, but in later life, you'll look back on it and laugh. And how true he was, because that's pretty much the way it was. But we went to cook school, and that was a good experience. So I came out of the AIT training, and over a period of time, I worked my way up to being a mess sergeant. And while I was a cook, I didn't particularly like the way that when we would go do our active duty 2 weeks at Fort Polk, several of the people that I was involved within my company, like first sergeant and the company commander, they always wanted to play the game according to the way they wanted to play the game. Yet they wanted everybody else to play it by the book.
Right.
And so I wasn't real happy about that. So every chance I got to make them go along the lines of going by the book, I made it happen. And so that was kind of my thing, and it worked out for me. It did.
Where was AIT at for you?
It was also at Fort Polk.
It was also, okay.
And it was, what I was in, the 95th Division was a training division. So we taught a lot once we got into working in the mess hall. We would have trainees come in and we would teach them. So in Fort Polk was a big training base for Vietnam because of the climate being similar to that of Vietnam.
Yeah. So do you have, you talked about the first sergeant and kind of like setting different rules for himself. Is that your most vivid memory of AIT, or do you have anything that sticks out even more so?
I can't say more so. I guess the biggest opportunity that I had of keeping the officers in line, so to speak.
Right.
So that they do what's by the book regulation. And that was when there was a vacancy came open in another one of the companies. By that time I had become a first cook. And he was a black captain, and he was a principal of one of the high schools in South Louisiana, It's a big logging community, so he dealt with pretty rough students. And he told me he wanted me to be his mess sergeant. And I said, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to be the mess sergeant, but I'm going to run the show. Now, if you're not okay with that, I'm not your boy.
Yeah.
He said, oh no. He says, you get it, you take it and run. I said, okay. So I took it and I put everything in place that was supposed to be in place. When an officer comes to an enlisted man's mess hall, he has a per diem that he has to sign the cash collection sheet, pay for his meal, and then we'll get the orderly to bring him his tray or whatever he wants to do. Well, I had one very obstinate officer, and he said, no, I'll bring you my money when I get finished. I said, no, sir, you'll bring it to me, you'll pay me now. So what if I just got $100 bill and that's all I've got? I said, okay, well, you give me the $100 bill, I'll bring you your mail. When Post Bank opens, I'll go change that and bring you your change. And I stood my ground. And I told my company commander about it, and he really chuckled. He really thought that was funny. And there were several incidents like that.
Sure. Was this at Fort Polk or down in South Louisiana somewhere?
That was Fort Polk.
Okay. Did you do all your drilling and weekend duties at Fort Polk? Or?
Yes, and every summer camp was at Fort Polk until the year I got out, and then it went to Fort Ord, California.
California?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you receive any specialized training like I'm thinking having been eaten in Army mess halls? For baking or like to become a pastry chef or a bread baker or something or was it just all generalized? You're the cook and you cook whatever needs to be cooked.
Well, it was all generalized, and whatever was on the menu is what you cooked. So
okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think was the hardest part of your training?
Basic training, because of the shape that I was in.
Okay.
I had to go back and do an additional 3 weeks of basic training before I could pass the physical.
Okay.
And on that 1 mile run under 6 minutes,
Yeah.
I made it with 15 minutes to go on the very last one. So
I remember those.
that and the long forced marches.
Oh yeah.
And the setting up of equipment out in that field. Of course, the DIs, I've come to love them. I was, at that time, age 26, so there were a lot of kids that were much, much younger than myself.
Right.
Had not had much experience at being yelled at.
Right.
So there was one that I really struck up a friendship with. And he was from California, and the little kid was about 6.5 feet tall. And he was we'd get through going on one of these marches, and we'd be standing out there, and you could see the big cloud coming across the field that it was going. And these DIs sitting there watching it, and we hadn't even unhooked, unstrapped our gear, put our tents up, or anything of that nature. And so they said, we've got wind that there's a whiskey somewhere on this somebody's equipment. So everybody lay all your equipment out, and we're going to go through and inspect everybody's equipment. And this cloud kept coming a little closer, and finally it opened up, and the flood came.
Yes.
Okay, put your tents up. So next thing, what are we going to do? I said, you and I are going to put one tent up, and we're going to climb in it, and when the rain gets over with, we'll jump out and put another tent up.
There you go. Oh, yeah.
But I guess those episodes that I spoke to earlier about not wanting to follow the regulations probably was the worst part. In hindsight, it really didn't matter.
Sure. What was the hardest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to?
I'm such an easygoing guy. I didn't have anything that was really hard to adapt.
Okay.
Because I knew tomorrow was coming.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's one thing I always told Vic. They yell at you, but they can't eat you.
That's right. So was there a part that you thought was really easy? It's like, oh, this ain't nothing. I can handle this.
Yeah, the cooking part.
Okay.
Even though it was the huge quantities, it was really an education.
Sure. What was the highest rank you earned?
I went out as a E5, Specialist 5, and
Okay. Have you joined any veterans organizations?
no, I have not.
Okay. Does your unit have any kind of reunions?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's just- Did you? Your summer training was at Fort Polk
Uh-huh.
every year. Did you ever, go deploy anywhere else?
No.
It's just all Fort Polk.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and just you set up and trained other AIT students when you would go on your 2-week call up?
That's right.
Okay.
Whenever we would go to Fort Polk, all the regular people, the full-time service people left. They had 2-week vacation.
Oh, okay.
So the 95th Division came in and just took over Fort Polk.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a real interesting thing about this black captain that I was telling you about.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, by that time I was the mess sergeant, and I had my DROs, dining room folks, KPs, cleaning up, and I had a black soldier there on KP, and I told him to grab a mop and mop the floor dry right there in the back. You always had to have a dry floor because of slippage and all. And he said, "No, you're discriminating on me." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, do you want to go talk to the CO about it?" "Yeah, I do." What he didn't know is his CO was now black.
Yes.
So I said, "Okay, come on, I'll take you over there." So we went over there, and I headed around the corner and in Captain Wilson's office, and I said, "I have a KP out here that I asked him to mop the floor, and he thinks I'm discriminating against him." He said, "Okay, send him in." Big smile on his face. So I told Scott, "So you go on in." And I slammed the door when I came back out. Well, you could hear Captain Wilson scream for 2 blocks.
Oh, yeah.
And I went back to the mess hall. Here he came. I said, "You get it all straightened out?" "Yeah, where's the mop?"
Oh, yeah.
So that's why I admired Captain so much.
Sure. So, how long were you in the reserves total?
6 years.
6 years? Okay. You didn't. No wartime service, which you got lucky. You didn't miss anything.
No.
I
Well,
can-
they tried to get me to stay with their promotion, but I thought, no, at my age, it's time to move on.
Yeah, well, I've had friends tell me they feel like they missed something because they never went to Vietnam, and I said, "No, you didn't miss anything.
No.
It wasn't a party you really wanted to go
No,
to."
it wasn't.
So, do you recall the day that your service ended? Were you at home? Were you down at Fort Polk? Did you have to go down to Polk to get discharged?
No, it was all done there in Monroe. See, we had a post in Monroe out at the airport, and that's where we would do our
Weekend?
weekends.
Okay.
So there was a whole line of buildings and not the whole battalion, but our section of it.
You had your own orderly room there and
Mhm.
paperwork. Okay. So, basically, then you were already at home when you discharged.
That's right.
There was no going home from someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Did you experience any of the problems? Let me back up. What year was that? Did you separate it?
Well, let's see, 65, 72.
72. Did you experience any like problems like a lot of the active duty folks did about being called baby killer and getting spit on like we did?
No, there was none of that.
Okay.
There was.
Well, I'm happy for you that you didn't have to go through that. And so it sounds like your family and community said, "Okay, welcome home."
Yeah.
Did you adjust well to not having to go to drilling and
Very
call-ups?
well.
Okay.
Very well.
I'm curious. Did you have some sort of GI Bill where you offered educational help?
No, no. The regulation on that was you had to serve, and I forget how long it was now, but so many weeks consecutively
Okay.
to be eligible for that. And my basic training in AIT was less than that consecutive number. I'm thinking it was, I don't remember now. Too long ago.
Okay. Do you feel like your time in the service so changed you in any way?
If anything, it may have built some of my confidence, but I never did like a whole lot of that. Let me rephrase that. It probably helped me with dealing with some negative actions, like, as many people, all the cooks and the KPs and the delegating authority, and knowing who to delegate it to about their actions. I'll probably learn more from that.
Okay. Good leadership training.
There you go.
All right. Any of the folks you served with, are you still in touch with them? Any friendships that have lasted?
No, I had a short-term friendship. It was a letter communications. He had decided he was not going to go to the reserve drill anymore, so he was drafted. They put him into active duty.
Right.
And he was shipped to Vietnam, so he and I had a pen
Correspondence?
pal deal.
Yes. Pen pals, isn't that what they used to call
Yeah,
it?
pen pal.
Okay. All right. Did your time in the service affect how you relate with others in life, like even today?
No,
No? Okay.
no.
All right.
And let me say that I might say that due to my upbringing and the situations that I was in and my guidance from my parents probably had a lot to do with that.
Okay. This part's called reflections. How did your military service experiences affect your life in general, in total?
No,
Nothing?
I can't say that life didn't just go on.
Okay, so do you feel like there were any life lessons you learned from your time in the military?
I'm sure there were. I wish I could be specific, but I'm sure there were.
Okay.
Don't do that again.
Yeah. Has your time in the military affected how you feel about the military?
No,
Okay.
no. I still admire the military. I don't care what branch it is. There's a lot to be learned. There's a lot of great people in the military.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a message you would like to leave for anybody who might watch this?
I think it's a great experience to go through. It's a big character builder. Excuse me. I think there's a lot of educational things and just life lessons that can be learned if you go in with the right attitude.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't talked about in the interview?
No, I can't think of anything.
So this is kind of similar, but a little different. Is there anything you've always wanted to share about your service time that you never have before?
I have shared freely.
Okay.
So no, there's nothing. Because, and I still talk about it today. The drill sergeant that said you'll look back and laugh knew what he was talking about.
Sure. Is there anything in particular you would like people to know or remember from your time in the service about your story?
No.
Is there anything you could say specifically you wish that, anything more that you wish people knew about veterans?
Well, no. I can't think of how to get started on anything.
Okay. When you did your weekend service, your weekend drilling, that was there in Monroe, someplace close, you said, by the airport?
At the airport. It was on the grounds of the airport.
Did you stay in barracks buildings?
No.
There, you went back home every night?
Home every night. Yeah.
Okay.
They had a mess hall, but they didn't have any barracks.
Okay. So, would you cook during the day then on the
On
weekends?
Sunday, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, each company, we would trade Sundays, and there were 5 different companies, so you would cook every 5th drill.
Okay.
And you were responsible for getting the menu, figuring out how much food you want. We go to the local grocery store and fill out a form, requisition form, and we'd turn it over to the grocery store. Then whenever they ordered in special for us, we'd go pick it up and go out and cook that day's meal.
Okay.
And that was a noon meal, which was the only meal that we cooked on the weekend.
Okay, just the one meal.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you weren't cooking on the Sunday, what did you do?
That's a good question. What did we do?
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Alex.
Well, I hadn't thought about it from that standpoint, but well, I'm sure they had different things that we got into. Probably a lot of cleaning equipment, the facilities, and I'm sure there were classes of some sort, not necessarily to cooking, but equipment,
Sure.
weapons, and that sort of thing.
Yes. Did you ever do, rifle range on a drill weekend
No,
and
not
things
a
like
drill
that?
weekend.
Yeah, okay. Did you do it while you were on your 2-week call-up?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's another one of those things. When you're a cook back then, you were on for 24 hours and off for 24 hours.
Okay.
And so whenever the first company that I was in, we had a drill sergeant that you couldn't talk to him about anything.
Yeah.
It's my way or the highway, or
Sure.
that sort of thing. And so if you when you were at Fort Polk and you were on for that 24 hours and it was your time off, then you were supposed to come over and do everything else with all the other company. One of the things they did, even though it was your time off.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that I did object to.
Sure.
But, can't change it, so
That's right. Just
do it and go on.
put up with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So one morning, bright and early, cooks would get up like at 2:30 to
Right.
go to the mess hall to fix breakfast meal for everybody.
Right.
And so we had to go, and I was ticked about having to go. So I told all the cooks that were on that shift, we'd tie towels to the end of our bed, so when the orderly room would send people over to wake us up, they knew who to wake up.
Right.
So I told all the guys that were off, you put a towel on your bed, we're going to get up, put our gear on, and we're going to his barracks, and we're going to say, okay, get up, let's go to the rifle range, which is exactly what we did. Get out of here, get out of here. No, I'm going on my time, you get up on your time.
There you go.
So that's another one of those things where I kind of took the lead in getting rid of some of those frustrations.
Sure. I have a curiosity question. Thought of your reserve unit. Was it a battalion? You said there were 5 companies. They were all cooks.
It was a part of the battalion. Each company had its cooks, and they would cook for that company. And there were some other. It was a mechanic school for the trucks and that sort of thing. And then, it's whatever they're going to go to Fort Polk and be instructors.
So it wasn't a battalion of 5 companies of all cooks. Mm-hmm. You were cooks in a company had its own just.
Is that its own? I don't know what you call it. Brigade.
Brigade. Well, battalion or brigade.
Well, battalions. See, we were in 90. Oh yeah, battalion. I don't remember.
It's okay. I was just curious about how the reserves were set up.
Yeah.
When you were at Fort Polk for your 2-week call-up, I forget, where's Fort Polk located? Is that Alexandria?
No, it's Leesville.
Leesville, okay.
South of Alexandria.
Okay. Would you stay on post the whole time, or would you?
Oh yeah.
You didn't go down into Leesville in the evenings and.
Well, early on, I got picked as one of the people that would go down and set up a mess hall for officers, and it was the officer mess hall. And it hadn't been used for an entire year, so we'd clean the whole place up, get it all set up and ready to go.
Right.
And in exchange for that, rather than catch the bus and go down with everybody else, I went down as an advanced party.
Right.
And I got to drive my car.
Okay.
And have my wheels for 2 weeks, okay. Which I gladly did.
Sure.
So, but we go down, we set that up, and then the officers. That's one reason that whenever I got my mess hall with my company, most of the officers would come to my mess hall to eat. They wouldn't go to the new one. I don't know what was going on down there.
Right.
But they all complimented my food. They've been eating it for about 3 or 4 years.
Sure.
So.
Well, I mean, on your off-duty time, did you go down and, partake, eat in the restaurants, drink in the bars, socialize down there in Leesville any?
Well,
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah, we did. I learned a lot about the Cajuns.
Sure, I can imagine.
Never did go as far as Louisiana. New Orleans. But we did go to Alexandria, Lake Charles, and we'd stay up all night, drive back, and because we didn't have to go back on duty till later.
Sure.
So yeah, there was a lot of that. Had a waiting list, of people that wanted to go. Well, you just gotta take a number, and when this will be your term, you can go.
All right.
But yeah, there was a lot of that.
Okay, so it wasn't all just 2 weeks of, let's get this over
there
with.
And get it done. No.
Okay, that's good.
It probably was for a lot of people those people that rode the bus, but
yes.
They were stuck.
Yes.
Which is why I took my car and went to Advanced Party.
Yes. Smart move.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to say before we conclude this?
No, I can't.
No.
I can't think of anything.
Well, I want to thank you for your service.
Yeah.
And all the training you gave to the soldiers that fed. I'm thinking active duty soldiers.
Yeah.
So
let me back up. One thing, whenever you're talking about just a story that got by me. One of the years I did ride the bus down there.
Right.
And we got off of the bus. It was lunchtime, and we went into the mess hall to eat, and they were having steaks to order. So I got my tray, and I went up there, and I looked at the cook right there, the trainee, and I said, "Okay, I want mine rare." "You want yours rare?" I said, "Yeah, I want my steak rare." I said, "Put it on." He put it on, and I let it lay there for about a minute. I said, "Okay, now turn it over." He said, "Turn it over?" I said, "Yeah, hurry up." He flipped it over, left it there for about a minute. I said, "Okay, now take it off." "Hurry up, take it off." So I ate my lunch, and so the next day was the day that the regular Army left, which I was telling you about earlier.
Right.
And I came down the line. And I had him when I didn't come down the line. I came in the mess hall to go to work.
Right.
So I looked him up real quick, and I said, "Okay." I said, "I'm your new mess sergeant," and I said, "In the next 2 weeks, I'm going to teach you how to cook a steak that's rare." And the look on his face was classic.
Yes, yes. I
But
don't.
there were several of those incidents which could have been, if you had the wrong attitude, you would have probably
Right.
been offended by it.
Sure.
But rather than, made a good situation out of it.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, when I first got my became a mess sergeant, got my own mess hall. We went down to Fort Polk, and there was a second lieutenant walking up the street, and I had looked out the window and saw him coming. And he came up to the door, and I went and reported to him, and he says, "I'm here to inspect your mess hall." I said, "Okay, come in." And we had a big rack with metal trays that food was served on. So he turned around, he said, "You can follow me." I said, "All right." And he pulled a metal tray out, ran his hand across the tray, looked at the back of it, slid it back in the rack, and turned around to walk down to where the serving line was. Well, I pulled his little metal tray out as he walked. When he got down to the end of it, there was a long stainless serving tray, that went the whole width of the mess hall. And I took that tray and I slammed it down on that stainless steel tray. Well, that lieutenant came off the ground about 6 inches, turned around and said, "What the hell did you do that for?" I said, "All due respect to your rank, sir, it's obvious you don't know how to inspect a mess hall. If you run your hands across the tray, it goes back over there to be washed again, because I don't know where your hand has been."
Yep.
And you could see the red turn here. He wheeled, went out the door, and I never saw him again.
Okay.
So that's another one of those situations.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I can understand it.
And I knew he was from Oklahoma from his patch, and that's where the 95th Division is, out of Oklahoma City.
Okay.
But yeah, I meant to include that earlier
Sure. That's fine.
because that
Yeah.
was classic.
We got time. Anything else?
Well, I did have a general that got wind of was coming by, and of course, anybody that if the company by wind found out that there was going to be something special, that had inspection or something, they have them come to my mess hall. And so I got wind that a general was coming by, and he was a 2-star general. So he came into the mess hall, and we looked at it. We walked around. He said, "I want to see back in the area where you're cooking." Sure, yes, sir. So he came down, and they were followed by a bunch of reserve officers. He was.
Right.
And so he gets back in the back, and he had his headgear underneath his helmet, underneath his arm. Well, Army regulation says if you go back in the area where food is, you got to have headgear on.
Right.
So I stopped and I said, "All due respect to your rank, sir, would you please put your headgear on?" Well, these other officers, and one of them was a major, like fainted because I haven't had the audacity to tell the general to put his headgear on. Well, he did. Went ahead and inspection, and they all went their merry way. Well, this major came back later, jumped all over me. "You don't tell a general what to do." I said, "Wait a minute. Wait 1 minute." I said, "Regulation says if anybody is back here, they have headgear on. And how do you know he didn't know about that, and he was trying me to see
Exactly.
if I would do regulation?" "Oh, I never thought about that." I said, "Okay."
Yeah.
But there were things like that. Not anything get to me, and it wasn't a big deal. He put his headgear on,
Sure. Yeah.
and I still to this day believe that he knew.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's about it.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for your service, Alan, and
Okay.
it's been great talking with you. So
Yeah.
let me press stop on this. It's